Welcome, everyone. This is the Coaching and Flourish podcast. I'm your host, John Andrew Williams. Today, it is my pleasure to have Raj Anderson here. Raj is one of our trainers and assessors at Coach Training EDU. I've worked closely with Raj to design coursework, coaching standards. She has her own independent coaching practice as well as consults with corporations on leadership systems and coaching. Welcome to the podcast, Raj.
Thank you, John. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm really excited.
So let's stay on this tea topic for a minute because I'm curious. What's your go-to tea? Like, do you have different teas that you use at different times during the day?
Yeah, so this is my afternoon tea, the coconut chai latte one. It's less about the tea, it's more about the ritual for me. So it gets me to step away from my work in the afternoon. I have to brew it. I have to be present and mindful. So I love that. English breakfast tea, basic black tea is my morning go-to. Attempt not to have too much tea mid-morning anymore, but in the evening, I do like to have just Indian tea, the chai masala tea. I like to brew it with all the spices if I can, but I haven't had as much time recently.
That was the thing. That was the thing when I was there. They would put spices in there and milk. And it was just like drinking honey. Beautiful. Yeah, it's lovely. I've been rocking this. I gotta share. It's a white tea. I have this little. This is my primary method of brewing right there.
That's lovely.
It's a white tea. I have a white tea for like mid mornings. I go with like a black tea, early. Anyway, here we are. Tea. All right. So let's first, I want to start in the middle. When you first heard the words life coaching, what was your reaction?
I think curiosity. I'd heard a little bit about it. I think, I've worked with people for about 20 years. I was curious, but also was a bit of stigma around it in terms of what life coaching was. Thinking about 12 years ago, being in the UK, there can be certain stereotypes and stigma around what life coaching is. I think that's shifted a lot. And I think for me, I was curious, yet I wasn't quite sure what that meant, whether it was some kind of therapy, and what it involved really. But I wanted to know more. And I actually met my coach through my role at the time. I was head of equality and diversity, and we were commissioning some work with this organization. And one of the women that we had actually commissioned as a psychologist, and she was a coach as well. So I was starting to get curious in some of the questions that she was asking, but I was a little bit dubious about it as well.
Right. It's an odd word at first, it's like a concept you gotta ease into, but maybe now it's different. Maybe there's more awareness of what coaching is, and it's not the same as it was 20 years ago. You grew up in the UK, and the UK has a rich tradition of coaching. I think it rivals the US in many ways. What do you notice the difference in coaching culture in the UK versus the US?
I think in the UK, we can have a bit of a stiff upper lip, be a little bit reserved about things. So for me, not just coaching, one of the things I love about being in the US is that I can be anything that I want to be. You really can live the American dream. I know there's been a lot of heaviness and sadness out there in the world, but one of the things I've been attempting to reiterate to people is what the US gives me. It's given me opportunity, it's given me exposure, it's helped me to come out of myself, it's enabled me to grow. And even though I work with people all over the world, the first thing I did notice when I came to the US, even around coaching, is that openness around wanting to explore self and wanting to know more. And there's less no-nos or gray areas, because I'm into, people who know me, I'm into spirituality and mindfulness. I might even throw in talking about angels sometimes. Bit more reserved in the UK around that, whereas US can be a lot more open and willing to just hear all these different things and the diversity.
Right. Yeah, for sure. I just read an interview that you did with a newspaper in Florida. And in it, you go into your story about how you grew up.
Yeah.
And one of the things that was interesting to me was this idea of due to versus in spite of. And so looking at how you grew up with this lens, what factors, let's start with in spite of, what factors do you feel like you were successful in spite of?
Oh, so many. I mean, the fact that I'm sitting here today in front of you, and being able to do this, the coaching, being in the US itself, I think, and I talk about that in my story as well. The adversity really shaped who I am. I don't believe I could or would be doing what I'm doing today if my life path had been different. So I had very strict upbringing. I mean, my mother was abusive. And I think all of that, I mean, sometimes there's like two paths that you can go. Yet for me, I'm so grateful. And I mean that. I mean, I've done a lot of work on myself. I've done healing work. I have a lot of coaching. I still have a coach, practice what you preach. I think that shaped me to understand people in a different way. And I'm so grateful for that story and that adversity because I get strength from it every day.
Right. At what point did you feel like it tipped for you? Where you feel like grew up in the UK, a small town, mom who was protective, not hard.
Mm-hmm.
When did you find, or what helped tip it for you?
Well, I had a really good relationship with my father. And, I think about, he's not with us now, but I think about him a lot. And I was joking with my husband. I said, my dad was drinking turmeric latte well before it was fashionable to drink turmeric latte. So you don't realize it as much when you're growing up, but he really epitomized and encompassed all things mindful,
Mm.
And I think about now, I work with people and we set structures and routines and strategies around how to start your day. My dad did all of that before I even knew what it was or what any of that was trendy. He would get up 2 hours before everyone else. Tea was a ritual for him, all of those practices. He'd go for a 5-mile walk, and he would give pearls of wisdom all the time, around reacting to things or keeping yourself composed. And I use this line a lot. People hear me say, people can only meet you where they're at. So he would say about our mother, she can only meet you where she's at. That's where she's at in her expansion or her vibration of life. So I think his calmness infiltrated into me. And he always wanted me to have an education. I mean, part of that, getting an education and having high standards, was so that you would get better on the marriage market. That's how it worked. I was expected to have an arranged marriage. So, I'd be more suitable. The better education I had, the smarter I was, the more well put together, how I looked, if I could cook, all of those are tick boxes. So, I mean, the title of this is Savvy Strategies. Out there, my brand name is, I'm known as the Savvy Strategist. And I think I was quite savvy even at the time, thinking, okay, how can I work this to my advantage? So I knew that they wanted me to have an education, and I thought I really need to get out of this environment. I'm going to be bold and say I needed to escape. So I was like, right, I need to get to university. I need to get out of here because then I'll be more eligible and I will be ticking all those boxes and that criteria. So I think my relationship with my father, his understanding about connection, all of that education piece, I use that as a strategy to get out and then elevate myself.
Right. It's like you were selling acorns to squirrels. You want to hear it? All right, this is why I'm going for it. Here we go. Here we go. So here we are, right? You're in university. You meet your husband, And then I imagine firework, family dynamic, fireworks, all of this. What in this process, what are some of the things that you learned about yourself in that process?
Well, I actually kept it a secret for 12 years. So I actually lived like a double life for 12 years. And it certainly wasn't fireworks when you first met me. I mean, I joke with people, I was like Ugly Betty, monobrow, straight lace, never been out, never had a drink, never been dancing. I mean, I would go back to my uni house and rewrite my lecture notes. So I actually saw him 3 years before he saw me, and I was like, wow, he's cute. So I had a lot of learning and a lot of growth to do during that time. I think I always thought that I would win them over with my success and achievements as well. So one of the things I pushed myself into was achieving as much as I possibly could. So getting the best grades with my degree, going on to do further education. I qualified interpreter, so I worked with the police force, doing interpreting, and then I went on to do an MBA. So it was always about attempting to excel. What I learned from that, though, years later as well, is some of that fed into my perfectionist mode, because my core motivation is number one, perfectionist, and I'm also the defender as well. And I think the realization when I started to have coaching myself is that I am good enough as I am, and I already have what I need within me.
What's it like to say that out loud right here, right now, in this moment?
It still brings up emotion. It still brings up emotion for me, because I think it's really powerful, and I genuinely really care about the coaching profession and the people that I work with. And somebody said to me just before this call, actually said, know that you are, you're enough. You're going to be amazing, as we were chatting around that. And I think we all as human beings want to be seen, and we want to be heard, and we want to be acknowledged. So I think just saying it out loud and claiming it here with you today it needed to be done today. So thank you. Am I still here? Did you lose me?
That's a first.
That's the energy crashed the system.
I don't feel like I've ever been, I mean, it's been frozen before, but I don't think I've ever been kicked out. I missed it. Was it good? All the participants have still heard that. It was good. I could feel it. It was going to be good.
I was just saying thank you to you, John, for allowing me to step into that and own it. Oh, did we lose John? I'm still here, everyone.
I'm just going to sit and be for him. I'm just going to sit in that energy for just a second. Yeah, it says my internet connection is unstable. I don't think they should use that word unstable. I think they should just say internet connection needs improvement or something. You know what I mean? Still could be a bad word.
Yeah.
Anyway. All right, there we go. I think I'm back.
You are back.
So looking at the 1.0 course, right? And you assess people, a lot of people. What's your favorite, what is your favorite concept in the 1.0?
Well, I like structure and framework. And I know as coaches, we're doing the structured improv as well. Yet I like to I like to work with people to help them to understand those foundational pieces, because it's really important bit around, especially for me, design the alliance. So I love design the alliance. I mean, I've got some favorite tools that I love and I use all the time, but I think I talk about design the alliance with people quite a lot. And sometimes we talk about it on the overview as well. I think about my own clients. And what I say to people is thinking about creating your own systems for design the alliance as well, because it's beyond what is coaching and what isn't. And we talk about that in the curriculum, in the book as well. But you are really creating that partnership with someone. You're stepping into their world. How do you meet them where they're at? One of the things I love doing in the Design the Alliance is talking people through, this is what coaching sessions going to be like. And not just what kind of a coach would you like me to be, but talking to them even about direct communication. So that comes up a lot in overviews and group mentor classes. Well, what is direct communication? What does that look like? Or I feel nervous or anxious about having that. And because we all want to be liked as well. So just thinking about how you even build that into the Design the Alliance. You know, I say to people, part of my role as a coach is going to be to walk alongside you, shine a light on those things that you might not be seeing. So I might call you out. Like, how do you feel about that? What kind of a coach would you like me to be? So I think that Design the Alliance, and part of that for me is understanding who you are as a coach and your own brand as well.
Mm-hmm. That's the perfect. Well, okay. I want to go there too. Who are you as a coach, and what is your brand, Raj? But that's next. Let's go into Design the Alliance just a little bit more. When do you know you're designing the alliance well? Or if, let's say that there was a coach who was asking, how do I know if I'm doing it right?
I think part of that is brand, when you can be relaxed and be more yourself. And it is more conversational. You know, you're not so rigid or in fear. For me, I know a Design the Alliance conversation is going well when fear isn't coming up for me. Fear of how I'm going to show up, or fear of how I might think I need to sell the coaching process. And that links nicely for me with when I was in the 2.0, the biggest gift I got from the 2.0 is letting go of outcome. And you really helped me with that, John. That changed my life as a coach. So for me, if I had those things coming up, and I had them early on when I was a coach, of how am I coming across? What is this? Am I following the process in a certain way and I'm getting scared? I might bring that energy, and there could be disconnect in that, even that initial conversation.
Right. There's a lot of power in trusting the process, like just letting the coaching process work. It's do the work. You know, you don't have to do as much work as I feel like new coaches feel like they have to do in those initial sessions. Okay, so let's go to your brand. Raj, what's your brand? How would you describe it?
My brand, I would describe it as, keyword for me is approachability. I talk about meeting people where they're at, and part of my brand is value add, and value add in a way of, I wouldn't say hard, I work smart to ensure that people feel an energy from me, that they can trust me, that they feel safe. So I like to think that I bring an experience to people that as soon as they connect with my energy, they know that it's safe space, they can trust me. And I get feedback from people all the time. I trust you implicitly, and that's part of my brand. People know one of my values, high values, is integrity. So I weave that into my brand around trust, holding safe space, and approachability. And I think part of that comes from having worked with people at so many different levels. C-suite, but I work with victims of domestic violence. I work with young people from disadvantaged backgrounds, refugees, asylum seekers. And I had to meet people at different levels where they're at. So, and part of that is everyone knows I wear my Wonder Woman bracelet. But I joke about that. But part of that for me is being able to speak the language of people I meet. So my brand for me is to connect with people and meet them where they're at.
Right. One of the things I'm consistently struck by, and you get consistent rave reviews on your assessments, and I'm always I'm in awe of people who have found ways to really leverage and work with their core motivation in a way that empowers both them and other people. And that's like I feel like there's an art to that. When did it click for you, or when did you discover these strengths in yourself and know, like, yes, this is the path?
So would you say strengths of using
Of being able to give like, of being able to give, like, how do I say this? Detailed, maybe perhaps at times tough feedback, but to do it in a way that people go, you know what? I love this. Like, cause that's not like a normal, you know what I mean? This is not like off, like, hey, I have some feedback I want to give you. Oh, great. Let me hear it. Oh, I love it. Thank you so much. Like, yeah, that doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. I think my leadership training has helped me a lot. So I was fortunate enough when I was in a leadership role, we delivered a lot of leadership training. I pulled from all of those pieces, the leadership training, the emotional intelligence, the understanding myself. And one of the things I attempt to do is to step into someone else's shoes. Firstly, I say to everyone, I know what this is like. I've been through it. I'm still going through it. So I think when you come from that place of compassion, firstly, connecting with somebody, I hear you, I see you, I feel you, I've been there, I go through it myself. I think the other thing is getting into somebody's world. So when I do an overview, we don't just listen to the recording and look at the feedback. The first session for me in an overview, I always have like a time structure. You know me. I have like a system that I'm going to use. I say, right, we've got an hour together today. This is what we're going to do. But firstly, I'd like to know a bit about you. What are your goals? What do you want to get out of coaching? What have you learned about yourself? We look at core motivation. All of that does give me information on also how I can deliver feedback, because if somebody is a 1, I may deliver the feedback in terms of what they need in a different way to if somebody is a 4, a doer. And also I get a lot from knowing if somebody is a consultant or if somebody's coaching already. For me, understanding them, understanding their standards and expectations helps me to give them feedback that's relevant to them and not just generic. I think that's the beauty of core motivation as well. Understanding how they might want to hear it and how they might receive it.
I could hear you talk like this all day. I'm like, well, just keep going. Like, just can we just do that? Like, have you say things about coaching that I feel like what you're speaking to is like, there's such a depth in what you're saying, like there's such a depth in your being that is so, it feels like you genuinely care on a deep level. And it's not just, oh, I care and there's not an action, it is, and nothing changes, but I care enough to listen to you actively, to really get into your world. And then all of my ideas are going to come through this filter of empathy and care. And that's what people feel. Advice to new coaches just starting out in their coach training. What would you want them to know?
I would say, firstly, don't forget to put your own oxygen mask on. first. They tell you on the airplane, don't they? If you don't put your own mask on, you can't breathe, you can't help anybody else. And I don't think that's just for coaches. I think that's probably for all of us, isn't it? Remember to put that your own oxygen mask on first. I think the other thing is to think about who you are as a coach. What impact do you want to make? How do you want to show up in this environment? And then I think the other thing is just even, and we do this work throughout the program anyway, and group mentor classes, overviews, but this kind of letting go, I hear a lot with coaches carrying a burden of the outcome. And it's easier said than done. You know, what is the value add here? What is my value add if I'm not fixing this? I think it goes back to trust as well. Just know that everything that you've learned through this coaching program is what I love about the framework of Coach Training EDU's program. You are equipped with the structure and the framework anyway. You have that to hand. You have those tools. So trust in that process. Just be intentional. I mean, I say to everyone on Overview's group mentor class, just give yourself 5-10 minutes before you go into coaching, set your space, set your energy, breathe, and just show up as you, as much as you can, without being attached to an outcome. It takes practice.
It takes, like, I think it's interesting is I feel like people, when they enroll in coach training, in my experience too, it's also a path of personal growth. And it's almost like you can measure someone's personal growth by also their growth as a coach, which is amazing to have a structure and a system like that does, I feel like, run so parallel. I mean, they diverge, obviously, but at different times, but it does feel like this is a parallel construction. I'm really curious, and we can shift more towards your work in the corporate world, your work with an independent practice, and look there. You have in your corporate website this idea of a diamond. Mm-hmm. Where did that come from? What does that mean? I love it, but where the brand of diamond? Why diamond?
It was born for me. I mean, it was just before I moved to the US, and I was just thinking about my own transformation, and my coach had given me, one of the things that come up, it was some journaling and questioning around my own journey and my own beliefs and how much I'd transformed. And the word diamond came up. And I said to her, I think I was always a diamond in the rough. And now I feel like I can shine bright like a diamond. And then I just thought, I like that. And I started to think about it more. And I thought, what do diamonds come from? You know, they come from simple, like, rock. So, and I was like, wow, I've been under such immense pressure. I've been squeezed to my nth degree. There have been times when I thought I just couldn't even go on. I couldn't even get up. And through that pressure, the formation of that, this is what came out. And that's where it came from for me, in terms of from rock to diamond, diamond in the rough to shine bright like a diamond.
That's fun. That's fun. Thanks, Raj. Thanks for sharing. One of the things I love about these interviews is the ability, because we've known each other for years, but we've never really had this conversation. Like, hey, Raj, like, how'd you grow up? And like, what's this about? Like, I love this. And I feel like it's giving like added depth to this. So thank you all the participants who are here, and really all the Coach Training EDU community, people listening to the podcasts. It's starting, I feel like what we're doing, well, as an organization, like where do you feel, and then we'll open up for Q&A, where do you feel the force of coaching is going and the impact that coaching is going to have on society?
I think coaching is the future. We need it more than ever, especially with everything that's going on in the world and everything, you know, with COVID and all the pain that's gone on with the racial injustice. So we need it more than ever. Yet I think people are also wakening up. They're awakened to the power of coaching. And the reason I'm so passionate about it and why I put in what I do, even in with the overviews, is so that we can support coaches and send them out into the world to be exceptional and have this ripple effect out there. And I see coaching being able to be available to everyone. And I think that's what we're doing, aren't we? I mean, before it was this kind of thing out there which was available to more of the elite or executives or people with money. Yet why not make coaching, as we are already doing, accessible to everyone? I'm fortunate, I'm working with a 16-year-old as well at the moment, and then I'm working with senior execs, and it's learning for me is wonderful through that. Let's make coaching accessible and available for everyone.
I feel it too. I feel like there is there's awareness that, especially with what's happened over the past couple months and especially over the past couple weeks, there's this need to process. And it's almost like there's this, you know, if like you process thought, emotion, like really get there, that I think organizations are starting to recognize and say, look, if we have an outlet, a way for people to process in a safe space and then put that into action, we're going to be stronger. And I think that's what I'm hearing. And I mean, you're saying as well, like, you know, this, it's almost like I think coaches got busier. And coaches who had something established got busier in this time. Coaches who are just starting out, it might be harder to break in, but I think once you're in, it does tend to, the momentum grows. Let's go for some, do I have a couple questions? Like, let's do it. Please put them in the Q&A, not the chat. I don't know if we can see it. I got one for you. What was your journey like from your first, like to get your first 5 clients? What was that journey for you?
Oh, that was an interesting journey. I've shifted and changed so much since then. I had a business coach then, and part of that was launching a program. So I launched a 6-week program, and then from there, people signed up with me for one-on-one coaching. And at that time, I was in a model of sales funnels and launching programs in a specific way. And I was active on social media 6 times a day. What I found was I was able to do it. I was able to convert and sell people quickly. I would give a 1-hour complimentary session, and at least 90% of people would sign up with me afterwards. But I did not feel authentic, and I didn't like the approach that I was using at that time. So I have changed and shifted a lot since then. It's all about, for me, being real. And also, the right people will work with me if they want to. And if people don't, that's okay. And that's all back to that letting go.
That's an experienced, confident coach talking. Right? It happens. It happens. All right. We have a couple questions. The majority of this chat, by the way, is just, we love Raj. So let's just sit there for a couple seconds. That's nice. Next question from Darlene. How did we meet, you and me, and how did you start working with Coach Training EDU?
Well, I found Coach Training EDU online. So my journey, you know, I've been coaching for over 10 years and I trained in the UK, but I realized that I needed to get an ICF accreditation, and I needed to do that. And I looked for loads of courses and things online. Nothing resonated with me. Things they just didn't click, and it didn't feel great. So it was Ashley that first contacted me, and Ashley is such a bright light. I mean, I think everyone can agree with that. And just that conversation with her was just, I was like, right. She was like, we got to have you. And I was like, I've got to be there with you. I think when I came into it, my intentions were more, I was probably in a bit of ego. I'm perfectly transparent to say that. I was like, well, you know, I've already been coaching for a long time. This organization seems great, but we'll see what happens. And then I spoke with you, John. We had a conversation. We had a one-on-one, and everyone knows that John could sell ice to Eskimos because he's charming like that. And I was like, wow, okay, I'm in. And I went straight to the 2.0, didn't I, John? So I got into the 2.0. And then partway through, we connected and had a conversation. And you said, well, would you like to be a trainer? And I thought, yeah. And by that time, I'd learned and grown so much through the process as well. And I think one of my biggest takeaways, as I said, was the letting go, but also humility. Keep my ego in check as well.
There's a bit of unlearning that needs to happen.
Yes.
Anyone who joins any program, I think there's a bit of unlearning. And then it becomes especially apparent with people who have, like, look, I'm already established. Like, I have my, like, I've been doing this for a while, myself included. When I went through my MCC process, oh, God bless my MCC coach. He had to put up with me. He's from Spain. He's just a lovely man. All right. We have a couple more questions, and they're good. I like them. Cindy she asks, can you give us some specific ways you were able to attract executive clients?
Well, for me, I mean, I have my own practice, but I've also collaborated and partnered with a number of different organizations. So I learned very quickly early on, and I hear this a lot from coaches, I want to partner with somebody, or this, it can be a lonely journey. When you start that business, you're the admin, you're the coach, you're the sales, you're the CEO, you're everything. So I think sometimes when you start out as a freelancer, you launch your own business, it's easy to see it just through one lens. And I'm only in business if I'm only finding my clients myself. I have a different view on that. I partner and I work with and for a number of different organizations, as well as working for myself. So obviously I'm a freelancer with Coach Training EDU. I'm with some educational institutes out there. I'm with Better Up, I'm with Kaplan, those kinds of places. So I get a lot of clients that come to me and executive experience through that. Yet I've also leveraged some of the connections that I have through people that I know, networking, conversations. It was not easy for me when I moved to the States. If I'd launched my business in the UK, I could have picked up a phone to anybody and I would have been right in there as consultant and coach. So what I would say to people is leverage those connections, start having those conversations with people that you know, the HR lead, the talent managers, the equality and diversity leads, the chief financial officer. Look at, especially now, this is the time, what is their well-being strategy? So, and sometimes, you know, I say to my husband, I'm the tortoise, so slow, steady, consistent. There's some relationships that I have been just marinating and keeping warm for even a couple of years. And I work with one or two of their execs, and now it's just bloomed. You know, they call me in as a consultant and we run programs, but really leverage those connections, have those conversations, and don't be afraid to talk to key people.
Right. Sounds like a lot of strategy, Raj, in your,
yes,
in your approach to this. Yeah, I remember those. I remember that 2.0, and it's, I feel like there's an element of, you know, like growth, like you like people get cracked open, right? And you can't hide in terms of, you know, it just shows up in your coaching. Like if you have an odd assumption or an odd, you know, incongruence, it shows up.
Yeah.
In the way you coach. Let's get some more questions here. Oh wow, they are. we might have to cut this one and shift it to blog mode. But we're going to go let's go for it.
Okay.
What advice, this is from Caroline. What is your advice about joining a coaching company versus going out on your own as an entrepreneur?
I do both because I'm a strategist. So I don't see any reason why you can't or shouldn't do both. I do think I'm quite passionate about that. There can be a lot of advice out there that says to people, quit your job, go for it. If you're not all in, you're not in. Sometimes I think that kind of advice can be irresponsible. People got bills to pay. You've got to build up a reputation and brand. You've got to find those connections. To me, it's one and the same thing. Even if I am part of a team of a different organization, if I'm a freelancer or a consultant or part of that team, I'm still living in my passion. I'm still doing it as Raj Anderson, the Anderson Center. So the way I see it, I'm still running my own business. I'm still self-employed, whether I do it by finding my own clients myself, or I'm part of a team where somebody else finds them.
You know, it's remarkable to me, having worked with so many people over the past, as consultants, independent consultants. We have a core leadership team. Having worked with a number of clients, and this idea of, okay, so how do you first get started? Like, how do you first break in? And there's something about you can tell very quickly when you're working with someone, and most of their mental, emotional energy is going towards, how can I bring them most value? How can I, because that's the bottom line. Like, if you're bringing value, it's going to get recognized. Mm-hmm. I think one of the things that, it's just inevitable. And so I think one of the things that new coaches doubt a lot is coaching valuable? And that's where it comes up, right? Like, oh, I need to solve a problem. That's why we want to solve problems. They want to prove it to themselves. How did you get over that? Or when did that shift okay, that's going to open up a whole new realm. I'm realizing we should end this soon. So let's put a bow on this, because I feel like we should do a follow-up with these ideas, because I mean, it is hard to break into the corporate world. You have to be scrappy to get your first 5. I mean, it's a hard journey. Moist and I, we were month to month financially for 2 years in our coaching journey. Like, it's a slog. It can be. I mean, but there are things that you can do that make it better.
Can I answer that quick though? Just one quick tip.
Yes, that was it.
Quick tip on that value add piece. If you don't have a coach or you're not experiencing it, experience it yourself. The shift in what you see as a value add when you have had coaching or have coaching is very different to if you've only had a taster of it. My life changed with coaching, and what I say to people, because I am a consultant and trainer, and I work with new coaches too on launching their brand and their business. And I say to people, I can give you tools and things to do all day long. We can find things all day long, but so many people say, I know what to do, I'm not doing it. It's when people are able to tap into themselves in who they need to be, what they need to shift, is when they are able to be the most successful. So that tip is experience it yourself and see the value that it has. That's when you see the value add differently for other people.
Totally. And ask, how can I give value? Even if they're not paying me, how can I give value in a way that doesn't create more work for them? Like, really, truly, like, people have come, like participants have come and said, hey, here's my feedback. And I'm like, great, this is amazing. Like, that's amazing. That's so helpful. And the same thing with almost anything, any corporation, you bring value, it will be recognized.
Absolutely.
Anything else, Raj? Well, it's so good to have you on. Like, it's like finally we have Raj, and there are more questions. A lot of this is around starting your journey and just a lot of love, Raj. I know I have my ending planned. So the blog, if you go to coachtraining.edu, look at the blog, there will be links to find, to your personal site, to your independent practice site, your corporate work. And I think we might even put that interview you shared with me that you did with the Miami newspaper. We'll put that in there as well. So we can learn more about Raj. And then also any questions you have, please put them in the blog. We'll keep that conversation going. Raj, how would you like to complete this podcast? What would you like to say to feel complete with this cast?
I just want to say thank you. I want to thank you, John, not just for this platform today. I didn't realize how much I was going to enjoy this. I mean, I'd heard from other people that this was a fantastic experience. So I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity. I could do this all day. I've really enjoyed it. But I also want to thank all of Coach Training EDU, the staff, the teams, and even the community for giving me the space to show up as I am, for letting me be me, and just allowing me to continue to shine and serve as well. I'm so grateful for the growth and learning I've had. So, and I know there's some phenomenal people on here today, and I cherish and value and love every single one of you. You've been there for me every step of this way. And I might be in the training or assessor mode, but every time I get something and I learn something from it. And I'm so grateful for that.
Raj, you're amazing. Thank you for this.
Thank you.
This is our episode of Coaching to Flourish. There will be a replay available on the blog. I saw that question. People are asking for it already. And for you, the podcasters listening to this, or people listening to the podcast, thank you. Thank you, Coach Training EDU community. I'll see you next week.
Thank you.